Hello and welcome to the Radical Podcast, inspired by the essence of the word radical, proceeding from the root. We explore the roots of metaphysical wisdom.
This season is all about divination, tarot, and the power held within our intuition. This is The Radical with Nicole and Christina, the two metaphysical girls in the material world.
Hello, welcome to the Radical Podcast. I'm Christina.
And I'm Nicole.
Today we're discussing the planet Venus, because we are in Libra season.
And in Libra and Taurus, Venus is at home. And a long, long time ago, one of our season 1 podcasts,
That was last year.
I had a note about how the planets and the Zodiac Signs and the houses all interact. And I knew there was a way to remember how they interact. There was like a metaphor for acting, and I couldn't remember it when we did that podcast, but I did some Googling, and the planets are the actors. The zodiac signs are the roles or the costumes that the planets wear. And then the houses are the stage of life they perform on. So the planets are kind of key in shaping the energy of the zodiac signs. So that's why we're talking about Venus today.
I love that. I remember you saying this. Planets are the actors. That kind of rings a bell for me. But I like that we're revisiting that. Oh my gosh, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, this is what I was going to say. So we're in Libra season, and Venus is the planet for Libra. But as we know, Libra is air and Venus is earth. And it just makes us understand that not everything aligns exactly the same, especially with Virgo and Libra, because Virgo is earth and it has Mercury, which is air. And then the next sign right after that, Libra is air and Venus is earth. So at this transition between the 5th and the 6th house, between the autumnal equinox, between Virgo and Libra, we have lots of energy flowing because the air and the earth together makes it feel very transitional, almost like anything is possible. But also, autumn is just kind of one of my favorite times of the year. And the last 2 years, I've had really excellent Mabon celebrations. And I'm going to keep that up for next year. I don't know what I'm doing yet, listeners, but I'm doing something awesome next Mabon as well. All right, I'm just going to get started right away and do a little review of when we talked about Venus in our Personalities of the Planets podcast. It's the second terrestrial planet from the sun in our solar system. It has no moon. It is the hottest planet, even hotter than Mercury, which is right next to the sun, because Venus has a greenhouse effect where the interaction of the elements and the heavy atmosphere holds in the heat on the planet's surface. I just learned this today, that it has a very regular orbit around the sun. It's almost a perfect circle. I want to talk for a minute about the rose of Venus. Listeners, if you haven't heard this, you can do a quick search on it and you can find some images of it. But it's essentially a sacred geometric pattern formed by Venus's orbit relative to Earth, tracing a 5-pointed star over an 8-year period. This is a natural phenomenon, and we're assigning it, or throughout history, our people have assigned it a symbol of harmony, love, and beauty, embodying divine feminine energy associated with the namesake, well, our modern namesake of this planet, Venus. But it's a fivefold pattern linked to the golden ratio and the Fibonacci sequence. And it's that deep connection between celestial movements and natural forms and math. But and math, it's a rhythmic cycle. And this is the math behind it. Venus completes 13 orbits around the sun in the same time that Earth completes 8 orbits around the sun. And this is the 8 to 13 ratio. It creates a synchronized pattern. It's like a dance, and it brings Earth and Venus back to nearly the same relative position every 8 years. So when we look at it, when we look at Venus and ours in from where we are, watching it go around the sun from our point of view, it makes this pattern. It is so cool and so beautiful. And it's something that I remember saying to Nicole long time ago when we were just first talking about the planets. I'm like, I want to do a whole podcast on Venus, and I want to talk about the Venus rose because I think it is so beautiful, and it is such a representation. It's such an echo of the beauty and the harmony and just the perfection sometimes. And not that things need to be perfect, but just the harmony. And that is why the harmony between the planets and the beautiful things that the dance of the planets makes. Venus does have an opposite spin and a very slow rotation. So most of the planets rotate in the same direction except for Venus and Uranus.
Oh, Uranus too.
And Uranus is on its side, do you remember? And they think that both of these opposite spin situations happened because at some point in their history they suffered a massive collision, which actually made them start turning in the opposite way and tilted Uranus on its side.
And I read in your notes from last year that the opposite spin and slow rotation causes Venus to be the most spherical object in our solar system next to the sun. That stuck out to me when I was skimming your notes.
And that just made me think of something else about things being very round. It's because they're very hot too, so that they're very malleable. Like asteroids can spin really fast or spin really slow, but because they're cold, they can't like form out into a shape. Venus has a really almost circular orbit around the sun and is a beautiful round shape in the sky. The interesting thing about the opposite spin that Venus has is that, and it's moving very, very slowly, is that 1 year on Venus, now 1 day on Venus is longer than a solar year on Venus. For the time it takes Venus to go around the sun is 243 days. But for Venus to rotate on its own axis is 244 Earth days. Isn't that fascinating?
Wow. Yeah.
There's so many interesting things about this planet and about its relationship to Earth, which once we get into the spiritual meanings of this and the correspondence with this with astrology and tarot, I want to get into some of the names for this planet. In Old English, this planet was known as Morgensterora, morning star, and Afensterora, evening star. I'm going to go through some other names that it has been called and is still continued to be called today in other cultures, but it wasn't until the 13th century CE that the name Venus was adopted for the planet. It was called morning star, evening star because Venus is so bright. It can be seen at the sky at sunrise and sunset. It was assigned all kinds of special symbology and meaning and mythology and stories. The Latin name for Venus is Lucifer, light bringer, referring to his appearance as the morning star. The Greek names Phosphorus and Hesperus, phosphorus, light bringer, and evening star Hesperus. There is some stories about some cultures initially not knowing that, or not realizing yet, that it was one celestial object, not two celestial objects. And that's why Venus has these double name conventions. But then it became more common knowledge, and cultures began to understand at different times in their growth that it was one celestial object, not two. Names from mythology and other cultures: Ishtar by the Sumerian and Babylonians represents the goddess of love and war. The Greeks gave us Aphrodite and the Roman goddess Venus. Jinshun, the name in Chinese meaning golden planet, derived from the gold in the Chinese five elements. It's a representation of the metal element. It is known as Kejora in Indonesia and Malaysia. And this is an interesting note that we don't kind of think about because we are a Western influenced culture. But in China, Japan, and Korea, this planet is called Gold Star, Jinshon. That is the name of this planet. They do not call this planet what we call this planet. So, yeah, and it's called Gold Star, Golden Star, representative of the metal element. Shukra is the Sanskrit name for Venus in Hindu astrology, which is linked to their day of Friday. Zora is the name for the morning star in Islamic traditions. Astarte, the Phoenician goddess associated with Venus. Freya is the name of the planet in the Saxon culture. And then we start to kind of see how Venus and Friday started to come together. But that's a whole nother podcast on the association of the planets with the days of the week. I read a Wikipedia article about the days of the week that is incredibly fascinating. We might need to do a year of just like timekeeping and calendars and like the numbering and the ordering of things. Because I was blown away at how much history we have on where our calendar came from and the naming of the days. In the Mayan culture, it's called Shak-ek or No-ek, the great star. The Mayans monitored the movements of Venus closely and observed it in the daytime. The position of Venus and other planets were thought to influence life on Earth, kind of like how we do right now. Mayan and other Mesoamerican cultures timed wars and other important events based on the observations of the planets. In the Dresden Codex, which is a fascinating topic that we can talk about another time, the Mayan included an almanac showing Venus's full cycle in 5 sets of 584 days each, approximately 8 years, after which the patterns repeated. So they were tracking this. The Mayans had a incredibly fascinating and complicated timekeeping system that I would love to dive into, and that season of timekeeping.
We talked about the Dresden Codex in our episode about eclipses. That was our 31st episode. Yeah.
I remember talking about, I think we were either talking about the Wheel of the Year or New Year's. And the Mayan culture's New Year was at midwinter, at the winter solstice. And they had 5 days before the winter solstice that were like their not extra days, but they're sort of like days where they had to, it was like the days to make it an even number of months for their calendar year. And I forgot what the name was, but it was like a auspicious time of year where you had to follow certain rules and you had to be really careful about what you were doing and not doing because you're counting down the days to that shortest day of the year. And then that huge celebration when the sun would rise after the winter solstice and the new year would come again. But that solar holiday was a big one in the Mayan culture, if I remember correctly. But I think we need to do a little more.
I think those days were also said to be like a portal or a threshold. Like the portal was open and like things could pass through to
Mm-hmm.
like the other side because it
You
was
had to be
open.
you had to be careful
Mm-hmm.
about what you were doing and saying, and like anyway, yeah. We will revisit that, listeners. That's a fascinating topic. But let's get into some more correspondences with Venus. The tarot cards, and I think Nicole's going to talk about these more, associated with Venus are the Empress, the Four of Wands, which is Venus and Aries, the Nine of Pentacles, which we just did, Venus and Virgo, the Five of Swords, Venus and Aquarius, the Two of Cups. That's such a beautiful card. Two of Cups, Venus and Cancer, and the Seven of Cups, Venus and Scorpio. That's one of my favorite cards. The Seven of Cups, that's the one with all the cups, with all the fantasy and the daydreaming, I call it. Some interpretations of the Seven of Cups is that it's a card, it's like a negative connotation of the card because it means distraction or lack of focus. But I love it because I love daydreaming about all kinds of different options. So I love Seven of Cups. The element of Venus for zodiac in the Western culture is Earth. You might see things different in other cultures. The zodiac signs associated with Venus are Taurus, Earth, and Libra, air. Well, Taurus is Earth and Libra is air, which we just talked about a couple moments ago. That Libra is an air sign with an Earth planet. And Venus is a personal influence. It's a personal planet. Venus affects daily life, influencing our style, relationships, and confidence. Two houses, second house for Taurus, and seventh house for Libra. I remember talking about the metal for Venus as being copper and how much I loved copper, and just the symbology and the spirituality of copper being such a beautiful healing metal. The day of the week is Friday, which we've tied to Venus, but also the goddesses assigned to Venus. That's where Friday comes from. The body parts, the kidneys. Have you seen any other body parts for Venus?
I did. Like the reproductive organs,
Mm-hmm.
which makes sense. And maybe some other ones, but that's the only one I can
Yeah.
remember.
And then colors, green, pink, and golden, the chakra. And this is open for interpretations and different people's points of view and understandings. I immediately thought of the heart for the chakra associated with Venus. And then I saw some other points of view of it being associated with the sacral chakra, which, as Nicole just mentioned, the organs associated with this planet due to the association with the deities. So you can kind of see that, but also just like that energy of those two chakras and how that flows with the energy associated with that planet. And if you have any other thoughts on that, listener, send us an email and let us know, because this is all based on our understanding and our relationships with the energies. The number for Venus is 6 for love, harmony, responsibility, and service to others.
So it takes Venus 225 days to orbit the sun. As an inner planet, it has a shorter orbit than our 365-day orbit here on Earth. Venus changes zodiac signs approximately every 20 to 30 days. It
Oh, that
depends
fast?
on, yeah, and the range comes from retrogrades. So sometimes it's a
Oh.
little bit longer, sometimes shorter, but it does move through the zodiac signs quicker. Like Christina said, the planetary influence is more personal and day to day as an inner planet. The outer planets are more of a collective or I was going to say universal. influence.
Mhm.
And Venus
Generational.
is, yes,
Generational. You've
generational.
said that before, and that always stuck in my head.
And Venus is also one of the traditional seven. We could clearly see it with the naked eye, being that it's so bright. The goddess Venus is from Roman myth, and then her Greek counterpart is Aphrodite. In myth, Venus, Aphrodite, the goddess of love, beauty, sex, fertility, prosperity, desire, victory, and creativity. And the planetary symbol for Venus is the circle with a little plus sign underneath. And this makes so much sense. It is said to be a hand mirror.
Do you know when I saw your note there, I started to add in another note about a symbol for Venus, but you were talking about where the symbol of the planet came from, and I remember reading about the hand mirror and then other symbols associated, but that's the actual symbol of the planet, this circle with the X on the bottom. Oh, I didn't know that, but now I see it. I absolutely see it. I put that another symbol of this goddess of love and beauty is an apple. And that's tied to the fertility and tied to another story of Aphrodite and her and her stories that I wanted to say a note on the cult of Aphrodite in Greece was imported or influenced by the cult of Astarte from Phoenicia, which was influenced by the cult of the Mesopotamian goddess known as Ishtar in the East Semitic peoples and as Inanna to the Sumerians. And Inanna, who we have mentioned before in one of our other many podcasts about deities and ancient deities, I remember her from the lions. That's when I was talking about her. Inanna, the ancient Mesopotamian goddess of war, love, and fertility, also political power, divine law, sensuality, procreation, and beauty. Inanna was the patron goddess of the Inanna temple in the city of Uruk, her early main religious center, which is one of the oldest cities on the planet, Uruk. She was worshipped in three forms, getting some triple goddess vibes here. The morning star, the evening star. So it's the morning Inanna and the evening Inanna, and the princely Inanna, reflecting the phases of the planet Venus. And Venus being called the morning star and the evening star because of its orbit is closer to the sun than the Earth's. So it always appears in the sky near the sun, either just before sunrise or just after sunset. So it's associated with dawn and dusk. And it was associated with this deity. Inanna's symbols were lions, the eight-pointed star, which is also tied to the symbol of Venus itself as a planet, and the reed knot, which represented the doorway to the storehouses and the granaries, symbolizing fertility and abundance. And throughout history, they found on the reliefs and on the artwork throughout this whole period of time, and I put a picture here of the knot, and I just put it there because I was like, oh, am I ready for another tattoo? I would so
Mm.
get that. I love the history of it. I love digging into and through and deeper into the connections of these deities and more importantly these archetypes and how they come up through human history and they evolve and they change, and then the Aphrodite we have today and where that deity lineage came from. I love it. I love digging into it.
So, Venus as a goddess, the Roman goddess. In myth, this is kind of her birth story, even though she wasn't really born. So in Roman myth, the children of Uranus and Gaia, Mother Earth, were the first generation of Titans, and that included Saturn. According to this myth, Uranus disliked his children and pushed them back into Gaia's womb. She gave her son Saturn a sickle that he then used to castrate his father, Uranus. And he threw his genitals into the sea.
Mm-hmm.
And from the sea foam, from what was thrown into the sea, Venus emerged, Aphrodite emerged. And in Greek myth, Homer tells us a different tale. And Aphrodite in Greek myth is the daughter of Zeus and Dione. But generally, I think the predominant myth for Venus / Aphrodite is that she emerged from the sea foam.
There's that classic painting of the deity in the shell.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I mean, stuck in my head. That's the one that I believe.
Venus had a couple of children, maybe more than this, but with Mars, who I think was, let me double check. I think, was Mars her husband?
No, it was
Vulcan.
Yeah.
Was her husband, right?
That's who she was married to, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. So with Mars, her lover, she birthed the god of terror, but also the goddess of harmony. Cupid is one of her children, and she also had a child with a mortal, Aeneas, who is a legendary ancestor of the Roman people. It really struck me who her husband and lover both were.
Mm-hmm.
And then the god of terror was one child and the goddess of harmony another. Very fascinating. The planet Venus, like we've mentioned, Venus is domiciled in both Taurus and Libra. Venus is in her detriment in Aries and Scorpio. Venus is exalted in Pisces and in her fall in Virgo, which we talked about a little bit in our 8, 9, and 10 of Pentacles episode, because the 9 of Pentacles is Venus in Virgo, the fall dignity. Like Christina mentioned, the 2 houses tied to Venus, we have the 2nd and the 7th houses because of the Taurus and Libra connection. Our 2nd house is the house of values, worth and self-worth, possessions and money, aka pentacle things. And then the 7th house, ruled by Libra, is the house of marriage, partnerships, and balance. The elements for Venus include earth because of Taurus. We get the sensual groundedness, and air from Libra. When Venus is in Libra, we get more of us, the themes of harmony, fairness, and justice, connection, social bonds, aesthetics, and refinement. So depending on where Venus is, which zodiac sign, it's a slightly different expression and it offers slightly different meanings. And it kind of goes back to this actors playing a role metaphor, where planets are the actors and the zodiac sign is their costume. Day of the week Friday, like Christina mentioned, and then some more about Venus's energy. Venus seeks to unify. Venus has empathy and compassion for others. There's a certain heart-centeredness associated with Venus, as well as our capacity to live with an open heart. I kind of called this section of my notes the teachings and the energy of Venus. So that's sort of what she's teaching us to do, is to live with an open heart. She brings the energy of delight, sensuality, joy, and pleasure. And there is sort of this motherly, unconditional love associated with Venus. And it includes unconditional self love and nurturance. I wrote down, if I draw the Empress card, which is the Venus archetype in tarot, that to me is usually telling me I need to do some like real self care.
That's
That's
that.
like my stop sign. Get into your earth element and take care of your physical body to nurture your body.
That's like that Taurus energy too, with Venus for sure.
And I was thinking about this before we got on to record, but the word tolerance came to my mind. And one way we can show that we love other people sometimes is extending tolerance and acceptance. And it made me think of when Venus is in Libra, Libra being our justice card, this idea of allowing people their opinions and allowing two things to coexist at the same time. I think Venus also kind of speaks to, the hierarchy of needs, that pyramid. So with Taurus and the earth element, those are sort of our basic bottom of the pyramid needs of safety, physiological safety, love, and a sense of belonging. It's sort of that baseline. And then with Libra, we move into sort of this sense of like self-expression. And that is on the hierarchy of needs as our self-esteem, self-actualization. And Venus rules, or has Venus is linked to creativity and how we express ourselves and our self-actualization. So I thought about the hierarchy of needs with Venus and how all her connections remind us to sort of like maintain and balance all these different areas of our life, our 5 basic needs of safety, love, esteem, and self-actualization. I think it's really interesting that Venus rules the second house, which is our self-worth, and then the 7th house, which is how we interact with other people. It's a constant balancing act, and that pyramid, that hierarchy of needs, I think speaks to that. Venus, being of the yin principle, teaches us about receiving and magnetizing versus being projective and efforting, which is more of a yang characteristic. So Venus sort of, in my mind, is associated with the law of attraction and the mantra, I do not chase, I attract. And I have a quote here. This came from an issue of the Mountain Astrologer magazine, but I found it online. The quote says, to the Mayans, Sumerians, Babylonians, and many indigenous cultures, Venus's cycle demonstrated shamanic initiation and change as she transformed from the morning star to the evening star and back again, disappearing into the underworld in between.
Mhm. I read so many beautiful points of view, so many different articles, and people talking about that cycle and how different cultures have used that cycle to reflect what they believed in the flow of their year, the flow of their lives, their belief in deities and their belief in, their place in the universe, watching this, what they were calling it a star, but watching this planet move through its phases and move through its cycle. It was so visible and so prominent in so many cultures. And we don't, well, I haven't been talking about it that much. And I was so fascinated to find out so much more about Venus and its importance in showing people another flow of time and another flow of regeneration.
Okay, so now some shadows, shadow side of Venus.
I like the word that you have there.
Venusian?
Yes.
Venusian
The
shadows.
Venusian shadow. That's another book we should write, Venusian Shadows.
Overindulgence, greed, vanity, superficiality. We kind of saw this energy in the Nine of Pentacles, Venus in Virgo. This is the fall dignity. And in that podcast, I quoted one of my guidebooks where it was written, flashy feathers with no substance.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be a shadow. Dependency, people pleasing, needing or seeking approval from other people. This kind of speaks to the seventh house and an over reliance on input from other people, or a low sense of self-worth. That's kind of pulling in that second house. Also, disconnection, isolation, fear of intimacy or vulnerability, and lacking compassion.
Where is Venus in your chart?
Virgo.
Mine is in Leo, in the third house. I love that. I know we talked about it before, but I'm just, that's probably why I am so enamored with these deities, Venus and lions. That speaks to me. Venus with Leo, I'm obsessed with these deities that have lions as their symbols.
Yeah. So tarot cards, Christina mentioned them. First and foremost, we have the Empress. We'll talk about the Empress in total full detail during Taurus season. The Empress is archetypal Venusian energy, fertility, abundance, sensuality, beauty, creativity, a lot of like earthiness, I would say.
I
There's a
think
lot of yellow in that card.
there's like wheat. Is that what's in front? I'm trying to think. I don't have my cards out there, but there's like this element of like a little bit of like this agricultural abundance in that card too, on top of being very luxuriously dressed and propped up on her plushes and pillows. There's a lushness about the whole card surrounding her, including what's behind her, whether that is a sunrise or a sunset. But the sun is going, either it's coming up or it's going down, which is tied to that Venus at sunrise and sunset as well. That card is beautiful.
And then in the minor arcana, we have the Four of Wands, Venus and Aries, like Christina mentioned. This is the detriment dignity, but I've also heard it called the marriage card. So I find the applying the astrological essential dignities to tarot is not intuitively, like the meaning, the association is not intuitively like obvious to me. In fact, I find them kind of puzzling. This card, there's a lot of joy, there's happiness, there's union, yet it's the detriment dignity. So I need to spend more time with
maybe
that.
maybe they talk about um Aries being very driven and very assertive, and the Venus is softening that so that you can enter into a union with somebody else. That there's an element of like softening the Aries with Venus so that you can enjoy this phase of life, or this phase that's coming forward with that tarot card coming forward in your reading.
Yeah. And in myth, like we talked about, Venus was married to Vulcan, the god of fire, and her lover was Mars, the god of war. So, was that relationship or were those relationships, did they take effort? Like Christina's kind of
Mhm.
suggesting. And the
Mhm.
answer is, I don't know, probably.
Yeah.
We have the Nine of Pentacles, Venus and Virgo, the fall dignity. This card I've heard called the Little Empress, and it conveys prosperity, abundance, and enjoying the fruits of our labor. And this is the only card that we've done a podcast on so far. And in our episode, we do the decanical interpretation. So with the Nine of Pentacles, we have the perfection or the orderliness of Virgo paired with the lushness and beauty of Venus. And the Nine of Pentacles is also called the Lord of Gain and is the card for the second Virgo decan. The Five of Swords, Venus in Aquarius. Someone wins, someone
Mhm.
loses. Two of Cups, Venus in Cancer. Very much a card of romance,
Mhm.
union, healing, traction. And Seven of Cups, Christina's card. Venus in Scorpio. Detriment here
Mhm.
also. And I read, or I put down on my notes, that this card is about choice, sometimes illusion,
Mhm.
kind of that daydream energy that Christina mentioned, but choice, illusion in the Seven of Cups.
I mean, we can't live in that space where we're always daydreaming, and we're not doing that. We can live in a fantasy world of our own creating, living in our head. It's fun to dream up possibilities and to dream up good ideas, but we can't live there. And that's why the Venus and the Scorpio detriment are there, is that you can visit this place, but you can't stay there.
Yeah. I also read this card could indicate greed.
Mhm. That you have so many choices and some people say it's like juggling the choices, or just lavishing yourself in the choices, and that you want all of them or you want none of them. Like, this card can mean a lot of different things as it comes up in your reading, listeners. But I guess, yeah, I look at it in where I am right now in my life, and I'm sure in 6 months I'll have a different thought of this card, and in 5 years I'll have a different view of this card. But just like all the tarot cards, it can have different meanings at different times of your life, but you can get lost in that card. You can, yeah. Anyway, I still like it.
Yeah, it was fun to look at. I actually pulled the six cards that are that correspond to Venus, and I laid them all out and took a picture. So that will be on our Substack. just for easy reference, but it was really interesting it's like with this season of tarot, we're looking at the cards and grouping them together in so many interesting ways. We have the decans, the elements, the planets, modes. I mean, there's so many ways to organize your cards and to look at them. You could even take all the twos from the minor arcana and put them together. I had a note that the Two of Cups is the only card with two people on it.
Oh.
Out of the twos in the minor arcana. The other cards, it's just one person. So there's so many ways to literally take your tarot deck and sort your cards and group them together. It could be based on numerology, zodiac signs, decans, and it's you can get information. And the way I laid out my cards, I did 3 on top, 3 on the bottom, and it's like the top 3 cards, the Empress, the Four of Wands, the Nine of Pentacles are all very yellow. And then the Five of Swords, Two of Cups, and Seven of Cups are all very blue. Like,
it's earth and air.
yeah.
Very earthy and very airy, because Venus has a relationship with both of those. It is, I was going to say something else. And it's also, we talk a lot about heroes' journeys, and we talk about how the cards show directions and show relationships. And seeing them this way also shows that. The hero's journey here, you could lay these cards out in a different order to kind of go in what makes sense to you or what your question is. But to understand how multifaceted Venus is as an energetic planet, as a historical reference point, as a object of our fascination and our curiosity, and how its energy affects us, then to look at these cards at the point that you're in your life, and seeing what they mean to you and seeing how those cards make you feel, I have a deeper understanding that Venus is not just one dimension. It is multidimensional. Venus is lushness and comfort. Venus is also Five of Swords. There's winners and there's losers. And there's, jagged clouds and the sky is dark gray and there's two people turned away. And then the next card is the Two of Cups, when it's, people coming together. So Venus just isn't one flavor, isn't just one dimension.
It would be overly simplified to just be like Venus, love, and beauty.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And I think for me, to wrap up, I can wrap up the way we started. Venus is the actor, right? And her role or her costume or her expression depends on the zodiac sign. And looking at these 6 tarot cards, that's really clear.
Yeah, I love seeing those cards together like that. And I didn't do that. I didn't look at your notes until we started, Nicole. So I didn't do a card comparison like you did, and I am thoroughly enjoying it. Just like you said, just the colors and just the two main aspects of earth and air, but then just all the other complicated matters of 2 people coming together, 3 people at odds, 1 person lost in their head, 1 person enjoying their garden. I mean, Venus is all of those things. Venus energy is all of those things. Are we ready for the message from the universe? Is it time?
Yes, I'm ready.
I am using my Island Path stones created by Ruth Forden and Ken DeBarth. This is from Ocracoke Island, and I've had these. I had them for years. Years and years and years. They are little pieces of beautifully worn down shell with symbols written on them. And you put all these little pieces of shell into a bowl or into a bag, And then you ask the question, and then you pull out however many stones you are you need to help answer your question or to provide illumination. Today I have drawn 3 stones, and you can choose one, or you can come up with a past, present, future, or a another meaning for the 3 stones. But I have 3, and the first stone is stone number 15, the sand dollar. Luck and good fortune. It is rare to find a sand dollar on the beach, especially a whole one unbroken by the action of the surf. The best time to search for sand dollars on the ocean beach is after a storm. Picking this stone indicates that the turbulence in your life is ending or has completed, and it's time for luck and good fortune to return. This is your lucky day. Wealth and abundance are surrounding you right now. If you have been waiting for the right time to make a decision, have a hard conversation, take on a new challenge, or take a new action, now is the time. The storm has ended, the surf has settled, and the treasures have washed in from the sea of your consciousness. The sand dollar reminds you to pick up your treasures and move on. You are assured of a positive outcome. That feels very Venusian to me, because that deity came in on a seashell from the storm. Okay, the second one is shell number 6, oyster, growing a pearl. Sealed up, closed, protected. A time of waiting. An oyster seems to be solid, still, like a stone, but much is happening deep inside. There is a soft, vulnerable life sealed inside this shell. It reaches out cautiously to sip nutrients from the surrounding sea. While sealed up and safe, the oyster processes grains of sand, irritants to its soft self, by slowly turning the sand into pearls. If you have drawn the oyster pathstone, be reminded that unconscious forces are working in the deepest, most tender layers of your being. Be patient and quiet. Seal yourself. Meditate and journal while experience uses this quiet place to form new patterns of thinking, feeling, and being in the world. Pain is being processed into jewels. The oyster pathstone reminds one that much is happening inside as pearls of wisdom are grown from past irritations. Patience, inner fortitude, and perseverance in all endeavors are needed. This is a slow process. And finally, I lost the page. And the last one, 10, dolphin, integration. The dolphin breathes air, yet lives in the water. It is of the sun, the conscious world, and also a creature of the depths, of the ocean, the unconscious. In a mystical fashion, the dolphin calls to us. It is symbolic of the forces, conscious and unconscious, that mold and shape our growth. Seeing dolphin offshore is captivating and one is drawn to their playful and charismatic energy. Like the dolphin riding the waves, we explore our inner and outer selves by swimming in the depths of the unknown and uncharted, emerging for support, information, air, and sun. You too have natural charisma right now, and people will be attracted to your ideas and creations. This is a time for balance and integration of what you know with your feelings and intuition. Trust yourself to know what you feel and feel what you know. And I will post pictures of these beautiful path stones. This is kind of like ruins
Yeah.
and oracles, but instead of cards, they're shells with little shapes on them. And I just love them. And I didn't think about this, but we're talking about the ocean and the creation of our beautiful deity. And here we have these beautiful ocean shells to help us listen to what the universe is telling us.
Yeah, that was perfect for today. And next week, we do like a 180, and we are going to be talking about the 13th card in the Major Arcana, the Death card, because we're moving into Scorpio season. We're leaving Libra season, moving into Scorpio, and the corresponding Major Arcana card is Death. So
we're moving into deep fall energy, getting a little watery, and the Death card. Oh, can't wait.
Yeah. But it's not scary.
No, it's
and
not
it's misunderstood.
Scary.
So
yes.
It'll be a really fun conversation. And we'll be back with that next week. So until then, listeners, thank you. And we love you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode. The Radical Podcast is created and produced by Nicole and Christina.
Music by Van Horton. His Instagram is Van Horton Music. Stay in touch with us at linktr.ee/theradicalpodnc.